Hello, friends. How's everyone doing? I'm CharmFlicks, and in today's video, I'm taking you on an incredible romantic adventure. This is a story filled with love, misunderstandings, laughter, and unexpected twists. From start to finish, if you watch this story, you're gonna love it. So, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive in. Friends, the story begins with a guy named Callum, who works at a big law firm. He's on his first date with a girl named Ivy, sitting at a restaurant. Callum's super excited, talking about his career. I've brought in so much new business that in 3 years, I'll be a junior partner. Believe it? With my track record, we'll be the best law office in the Atlanta area, maybe the whole state. Ivy's listening, but Callum just won't stop. He keeps going on about his success, while Ivy's thinking, wow, this is crazy. Then it's time to order. The waiter comes and asks, ready? Ivy says, yeah, I'll have the spaghetti carbonara. Callum says, for me, a Caesar salad with chicken, dressing on the side. The waiter leaves, and Callum starts talking about Ivy's choice. Carbonara? Have you ever been to Italy? The pasta there is amazing. Here in America, it's all dry, full of preservatives. I don't even touch it. Fresh noodles, made daily right in front of you. Eat it 3 times a day, and you won't gain a pound. Ivy listens quietly but thinks to herself, this guy only talks about himself. The date ends, and Callum offers to walk Ivy to her car. Ivy says, no, it's fine, my car's right there. Callum, it was nice meeting you, and thanks for splitting the bill. Callum gets a bit embarrassed. Did I talk too much? I'm not always like this, it's my courtroom habit, controlling the conversation. Ivy says, it's okay, I learned a lot. But Callum's not giving up. Give me another chance. Free on Sunday? What time do you get out of church? Ivy says, I might have plans. Callum persists, daytime then. 2 p.m.? Cool, it's a date. I'll pick you up, text me your address. Ivy says, I'll see if I can. Callum's thrilled. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Back home, Ivy calls her best friend, Andrea. What did you think? It wasn't awful, but Callum's so arrogant. He went on about his law firm, then carb-shamed my carbonara, saying American Italian food is garbage, and he picked the restaurant. Then he asked to split the check, after talking about his success for 25 minutes. Andrea says, sorry, Ivy, but he's getting back into dating like you. Maybe he forgot basic etiquette. Not doing ladies first is bad, but he's not a serial killer or living in his mom's basement. Good guys are hard to find these days. Then Andrea sends a screenshot. Ivy's ex, Jason, 62, looking for a long-term partner. Ivy says, an 8-year relationship isn't long-term? How do I start over? Andrea says, give Callum another shot. Jason's hunting prospects on apps, but you've got a cute guy who wants to spend time with you. He's tolerable for family events. Ivy says, fine, it can't be worse. Andrea says, go, call me when you're home. Love you. So, Ivy agrees to give Callum a second chance. Andrea asks, what'll you wear for tomorrow's date? Callum didn't say what you're doing. Ivy says, I haven't thought about it. He just sent some cryptic texts with sunshine emojis. Andrea shows her a fancy dress. Wear this, Jason will regret not marrying you. Ivy laughs. Isn't this too fancy? On the date day, Callum picks Ivy up in an old orange and white Ford truck. Ivy's shocked. Is this yours? Doesn't seem like a top law partner's car. Callum laughs. It's my pride and joy. Bought it in high school working 2 jobs. The door handle sticks, and Callum helps. Ivy says, you're awfully quiet. Callum says, not always. Guess where we're going? Ivy asks. Callum says mysteriously, you'll see, we're almost there. And I'm not taking you to murder you, promise. Ivy laughs. I didn't think that, but thanks. They reach a lake. Callum says, the house is locked, but my favorite spot's past that forest. Ivy says, hiking? I'm not dressed for this. Callum laughs. You look great. We're not hiking, we're going in. They reach a canoe. Ivy says, this is cool, but I can't swim. Callum says, you don't need to swim for a canoe. Safety first, put on a life jacket. Check for spiders. Ivy carefully gets in, and they paddle out. On the lake, Callum says, I spent so much time here with my dad. This canoe was his. Ivy says, sorry, your dad, Callum says, he showed me this secret spot. We'd fish, sometimes spend the night. An island paradise in the middle of Georgia. They reach an island, and Callum says, there's a bit of a hike. Ivy says, should I pull the canoe up more? Callum says, nah, it's fine. On the island, they see a beautiful view. Callum asks, how's it look? Ivy says, amazing. Callum offers water and snacks, jerky, oranges, trail mix, granola bars. I'm allergic to nuts, Ivy says. Callum says, sorry, I didn't know. Ivy says, how would you? Andrea probably told you about my divorce. I'm not used to starting from scratch with people. Callum says, I get it. I'm coming out of an 8-year relationship too. Ivy's surprised. 8 years? Didn't want to marry. Callum says, I did, but I don't want to talk about it. As they prepare to leave, water starts leaking into the canoe. Ivy yells, what's happening? Callum says, quick, back to the island, paddle right. But the water keeps coming. Callum says, we'll have to swim. You've got a life jacket, you'll be fine. They make it back to the island, soaked. Ivy's mad. You knew I can't swim, and you brought this canoe? Callum says, it's never had a problem in 30 years. Ivy admits, I pulled the canoe up, thought it might float away. Sorry. Callum snaps, that canoe held 30 years of memories with my dad. Ivy notices his leg wound and says, can I see it? She's shocked. It's infected. Callum surprised. How do you know? Ivy says, you didn't listen on our first date. I was a nurse for 10 years. Callum says, was? Why'd you quit? Ivy says, my ex, Jason, wanted me to spend more time with him. I went part-time, then quit. Thought he'd marry me. I loved my job, but I loved him more. Ivy hears a boat and yells, over there. But it leaves. They try to start a fire. Ivy's bag is soaked, but Callum finds a lighter in his makeup bag. Ivy teases, you made it to Cub Scout, huh? They laugh. Night falls, and Ivy panics. Are we staying here? No one knows we're here. Callum says, you're my buddy, it's the buddy system. Ivy snaps, is this Jurassic Park? Are there snakes? Callum laughs. Just rabbits. We'll be fine. Meanwhile, Andrea goes to the police station looking for them. An officer says, we can't do anything until 48 hours. But Deputy Ryan Roberts, Andrea's old school friend, sees her and says, Andrea? Remember prom night when I ditched Janie? Andrea says, yeah, you left with Kate Bradshaw. Ryan says, I can help. What's Callum's car like? Andrea says, orange and white Ford truck. They check hospitals but find nothing. Andrea says, Callum has a canoe, they might be at the lake. Ryan says, the lake's closed, but Callum's family has a lake house. Let's check tomorrow. Back on the island, Callum and Ivy sit by the fire. Callum says, my ex, Becca, wanted me to take over the firm. Her dad was a big-shot New York attorney. I worked 16-hour days, but it wasn't enough. I talked too much at dinner, didn't I? I was just proud. Ivy says, I get it. I gave up a lot for Jason too. They sit under the stars. Callum says, God's work, beautiful, right? Ivy says, yeah, but my bed would be better. They laugh. Next morning, Ivy sees Callum shivering. His infection's worse. Andrea and Ryan reach the lake house and see Callum's truck. The canoe's gone, and they realize they're stuck on the lake. Ryan says, 50,000 acres of water, we can't do this alone. Andrea says, Ivy can't swim, we have to try. The story's at a point where Callum and Ivy are stranded. Callum's leg infection is bad, and Ivy heard a boat, but it left. Ivy says, I'll swim to shore. You need antibiotics, or you'll go into septic shock. Callum says, you can't swim, it's too far. Even with a life jacket, it's risky. Ivy's stubborn. You can't stop me. You said, right place, right time. This is my purpose. I'm at peace, I know we'll be okay. Meanwhile, Andrea and Ryan search the lake. Ryan convinces the sheriff for backup, but it'll take hours. Andrea says, hours? The sun's going down. They take jet skis. Andrea says, Callum mentioned an island he went to with his dad. I've got a hunch they're there. Ryan says, there are 14 islands, but let's go, it's a lead. On the island, Ivy tries building a raft. Callum says, it won't work. No rope, no axe. Ivy says, I'm not staying here 5 days, help or watch. Andrea and Ryan find canoe marks at the lake house. Andrea says, Ivy can't swim, they're in trouble. Ryan says, 50,000 acres, we need more people. Ivy hears another boat and yells, but Callum says, calm down, we'll shout when it's closer. Ivy says, how are you so calm? I worked in a pediatric ER. Once, an 8-year-old girl was hit by a car. Her parents didn't panic, just prayed calmly. When the doctor said she'd be okay, they weren't surprised. I want that peace. Callum says, me too. When Becca left, I felt like a failure. But I believe we're in the right place at the right time. Next morning, Callum's shivering hard. Ivy checks his pulse. You need a hospital. Andrea and Ryan reach the island on jet skis and spot them. They're rescued. At the hospital, Callum recovers. Ivy tells Andrea, Callum hasn't called. We went through so much, yet he's pulled away. Andrea says, have you called him? He might be waiting. Suddenly, Callum shows up at Andrea's house. Ivy says, what are you doing here? Callum says, Andrea told me you were here. I wanted to call but wasn't sure if you wanted me to. We both have past baggage. But I wouldn't trade our time together. I want to see you again. Ivy smiles, and the story ends on a sweet note. Friends, that's the end of our story. Callum and Ivy's first date was a disaster, but the island adventure brought them closer. What did you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you loved this story, share it. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss new videos. Thanks for watching, bye-bye.